Daniel was the only human medic stationed on Outpost 7, a small medical hub floating near the edge of Torvian space. It wasn't much, just a floating shell of metal with blinking lights, a tiny landing pad, and a few medical beds. But it was quiet, and Daniel liked it that way. Most days he spent his time checking equipment, reading old Earth novels, or patching up small injuries from passing traders. One evening, the alarm rang through the station. Daniel rushed to the control panel and saw a small Torvian shuttle spinning toward the landing zone. It was damaged, engines smoking, barely holding together. Without waiting for permission, he activated the emergency tractor beam and pulled the shuttle into the dock. The hatch opened slowly. Inside, he found smoke, broken panels, and a single injured figure slumped in the corner. It was a young alien woman. Her gray skin was cut and bruised, and her dark eyes were half open. She looked barely conscious. Daniel gently lifted her into his arms. "I've got you," he whispered. She didn't respond, but her hand lightly grabbed his arm as if holding on to something safe. Daniel placed her on the medical table and began working. Her injuries were serious fractured ribs, a broken arm, and a deep wound along her side. Whoever she was, she had been through something rough. He cleaned her wounds, gave her pain medicine, and wrapped her broken arm in a brace. She didn't speak at first, just stared at him with tired eyes. After a few hours, the worst was over. She slept in a quiet corner of the medical bay while Daniel monitored her vitals. As he sat nearby writing notes on her condition, he noticed strange marks on her back. They weren't crash injuries, they looked older, like scars. Someone had hurt her before this crash. The next day, she finally spoke. "Where am I?" Her voice was soft and hoarse. "You're safe," Daniel said. "This is Outpost 7, a human medical station. You crashed. I helped you." She nodded weakly. "Thank you. I had to escape." "Escape?" Daniel asked. "From what?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked out the small window at the stars. "My name is Kira," she said quietly. "Just Kira." Daniel smiled. "Just Kira? You're lucky to be alive?" Over the next 2 days, she began to heal. Daniel noticed she was smart, alert, and carried herself like someone trained in combat. But she was also quiet, guarded. She never said much about where she came from. Daniel didn't push. He'd learned long ago that some wounds were deeper than physical ones. On the 3rd day, a Torvian patrol ship appeared on the radar. Daniel didn't like it. Torvians were strict, proud, and didn't trust humans. When the ship docked, 2 soldiers stepped onto the station. "We are looking for a fugitive," one said in a sharp tone. "A Torvian female. Dangerous. Escaped. Royal grounds." Daniel's heart skipped a beat. Kira hadn't said anything about being royal. Kept his face calm. "I haven't seen anyone like that," he replied. The soldiers scanned the room. Kira stayed hidden in the supply room, silent and still. The Torvians looked around but didn't find her. After a tense moment, they left. When Daniel returned to the supply room, Kira was standing there, shaking slightly. "You lied for me," she said. "I didn't like the way they talked," Daniel said. "And I don't hand over injured patients." Looked at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she said, "I'm not just a pilot. I'm the daughter of the Torvian king. I escaped because I didn't want to follow his rule. I was supposed to be married to a war general, but I refused, so I ran." Daniel sat down beside her. "That explains a lot. I thought humans were monsters," Kira said. "But you saved me. You didn't even know who I was." "I don't need to know titles," Daniel replied. "You were hurt. I'm a medic. That's enough." She smiled for the first time. Small, real smile. "Thank you," she said softly. For the next few days, Daniel and Kira stayed hidden. The station was small, but its lower levels were rarely used. Old storage rooms, dusty corridors, and half-working systems gave them enough places to hide. Daniel used the time to treat her wounds and help her recover fully. Kira grew stronger each day, and so did the strange connection between them. Daniel noticed that Kira was changing. At first, she had been cold and guarded. Now she laughed sometimes. She asked questions about Earth, about humans, and and even told him about her own planet in bits and pieces. But there was always a shadow behind her, smile a reminder of what she had run from. "Do you miss your home?" Daniel asked one evening, while they sat near a small vent blowing warm air. "I miss what it could have been," Kira replied, "not what it became. My father, he only saw power. I wanted to live differently." Daniel nodded. "Sometimes people in charge forget what really matters." Kira looked at him. "That's why I respect you. You had nothing to gain from saving me, but you still did it." Before Daniel could reply, the station's warning lights blinked again. Another Torvion ship had entered the zone. This one was larger, more powerful. They're searching harder. "Now," Daniel said, frowning. "We can't stay much longer." Kira stood, serious. "Then we need a plan." Daniel contacted a few people he trusted, to human pilots who sometimes delivered medical supplies to the outpost. They had helped him in the past and owed him a favor. He asked them if they could help smuggle someone off the station without getting caught. They agreed, but it had to be fast. "They'll pick us up in 36 hours, Daniel told Kira. "We'll get you to a human colony. They'll protect you there." Kira hesitated. "You're coming too?" Daniel blinked. "I thought I'd stay here." "You'll be in danger if they find out you helped me," she said. "I won't leave you behind." Daniel didn't argue. Deep down, he didn't want to stay either. He had grown attached to Kira, not just because she was important or different, but because she made him feel alive again. The next day, Daniel prepared supplies while Kira stayed hidden. Everything was going smoothly until one of the pilots he contacted sent a message. "Sorry, Daniel. The Torvians made me talk. They know she's there." Daniel's heart dropped. "They're coming," he told Kira. Within an hour, 3 Torvion ships surrounded the station. A message came through. The screen lit up, showing a tall Torvian figure in royal armor. "This is King Orvik of the Torvian Empire." The voice boomed. "You are hiding, my daughter. Surrender her now, and your life will be spared." Kira stood beside Daniel. Her face was pale, but her eyes were full of fire. "He never came for me before," she whispered. "Only when he fears losing control." Daniel looked at her. "We still have time. The transport ship can get us out." "No," Kira said. "We don't run now. It's not this time." Daniel frowned. "What are you saying?" "I'm tired of hiding," Kira said. "I'll face him, but not as a prisoner. I'll speak for myself." Daniel grabbed her arm gently. "Are you sure?" Kira nodded. "He needs to see I'm not afraid anymore." Daniel sent a message. "Back to the Torvian ship. She will speak to you directly, but only under the station's neutral law. No weapons, no tricks." The king agreed. An hour later, the docking bay opened. King Orvik stepped out, tall and proud, with guards behind him. Kira stood at the edge of the room, unarmed but strong. "You've caused enough trouble," Daughter Orvik said coldly. "I caused trouble by thinking for myself," Kira replied. "You tried to chain me to your power games. I chose freedom." "Freedom. With a human," the king sneered. "He saved my life," Kira said. "He showed me kindness. You never did." The room was silent. Daniel stood beside her now. "I didn't steal your daughter," Daniel said. "She came here wounded. I helped her. You plan to take her from me?" the king asked. "No." Daniel replied calmly. "She chooses where she wants to be." For a moment, no one spoke. The king's eyes narrowed. Then, to everyone's surprise, he turned and waved his guards away. "You've changed," he told Kira. "You speak like a leader." "Maybe because I stopped living in fear," she said. The king looked at Daniel again. "If you truly care for her, human, would you protect her even among your kind?" "With everything I have," Daniel answered. The king thought for a long moment, and quietly he said, "Then prove it." "How?" Daniel asked. "Marry her," the king said. "Let it be known to both our people. She is to live among humans. She must not be hidden. She must be honored." Kira blinked, shocked. Daniel looked at her. She met his gaze, unsure at first, but then slowly nodded. "Double quotes, I want this," she whispered. Daniel smiled. "Then so do I." After the king's surprising words, silence filled the station. Daniel looked at Kira. Her face showed many emotions: shock, fear, hope, but above all, she looked strong. "Do you really mean it?" she asked her father. King Orvik did not blink. "Yes, if you are to stand with this human, do so in the open. Let all Torvians and humans witness it. If you are to defy my rule, then do it as a symbol, not as a runaway." Daniel didn't know what to say. He had expected a fight, not an offer of marriage from a king. "This is a big decision," he said softly. Kira looked at him and took his hand. "We've both been through enough. Maybe it's time we stop running." Daniel nodded slowly. "Then we'll do it." King Orvik turned to his guards. "Prepare the message. This union will be known across both worlds." Kira raised her eyebrows. "Now," the king's voice was firm, "the galaxy watches. Delay brings weakness. We do this soon." Within hours, preparations began. The station crew, confused but curious, helped arrange the medical bay into something close to a ceremonial space. The Torvian guards brought in traditional clothing and symbols from their ship. One of the human pilots returned with simple Earth-style rings and flowers. News of the union spread quickly. Human and Torvian ships hovered near the station, watching, but not interfering. Messages flooded in from nearby colonies, some curious, some doubtful, and some even angry. Many on both sides didn't understand how a human and a Torvian princess could come together, but Daniel and Kira didn't care. They stood side by side, preparing for the day that would change their lives. Before the ceremony, Daniel stood in front of a small mirror, adjusting his collar. He never imagined himself as anything more than a medic. Now he was about to become a symbol of peace between species. Kira stepped into the room, wearing a robe that blended human and Torvian designs.
How?
Her silver skin shimmered under the soft lights. Daniel stared for a second, stunned by her beauty. "Do I look strange?" she asked, tilting her head. Daniel smiled. "You look like someone who knows who she is." She reached out and fixed a small pin on his shoulder. "So do you." The ceremony was simple but powerful. There were no grand speeches, just two people standing before both Torvian and human witnesses, promising to walk forward together. Daniel placed a ring on Kira's finger, human tradition. Kira touched her forehead to his, Torvian one. When it was over, soft cheers came from the station crew. Even a few Torvian guards clapped. King Orvik gave a slow nod of approval, though his face remained serious. Afterward, Daniel and Kira stood alone near the window, watching the stars. "We did it," Daniel said. "Yes," Kira replied. "But it's not the end. It's just the start." He nodded. "What happens next?" "We go to Torvia," she said, as a married pair. As a voice for peace, Daniel raised an eyebrow. Kira laughed. "More than that now, you're my husband." Daniel felt warmth in his chest. He didn't know what the future held, but with Kira by his side, he was ready. The next day, they boarded a Torvian ship together. For the first time, Daniel saw Torvia. Through the ship's main window, the planet was large, dark green with glowing rivers and tall floating towers. It looked nothing like Earth, but it felt alive. As they entered the royal capital, Torvian citizens gathered to watch. Some stared in silence, others whispered, but none dared speak openly against the king's command. Inside the royal hall, King Orvik stood before the grand court. Torvian leaders, elders, and military chiefs gathered to see the new couple. The king raised his hand and spoke. "My daughter has chosen her path. This human saved her life, gave her strength, and now stands as her partner. Let it be known, this union is not weakness. It is a step toward peace." Some clapped. Others remained silent. The old ways were hard to break. Later, in a private room, the king met Daniel alone. "You surprised me, human," Orvik said. "I didn't plan this," Daniel replied. "I just did what felt right." The king studied him. "You speak simply, but your actions changed more than you know." He walked toward the window. "Many Torvians will not accept this easily, but they will not fight it either. Your presence has created something I never expected." "And Kira?" Daniel asked. "Will she be safe?" "As long as you're with her," Orvik said, "she'll be safer than ever." When Daniel returned to their quarters, Kira was waiting. She smiled. When she saw him, so what did he say? She asked. He thinks we've started something big, Kira chuckled. We have. They looked out the window together, watching as the Torvian sun rose slowly. It was a new day. Not just for them, but for two species that had once stood far apart. Life on Torvia was nothing like Earth. The buildings floated high above the land, held in place by energy fields. The sky had two moons, and the plants glowed at night. Daniel found it beautiful, but strange. He tried to adjust. He learned the local greetings, tried new foods, and even wore the traditional robes when required, but still, some people stared at him. They whispered behind his back, not because he was rude or wrong, but because he was human. Kira stood beside him, strong and proud. She didn't hide their marriage. She spoke in council meetings. She gave public speeches. She told the people again and again that love had no species. Still, not everyone believed her. One day as Daniel walked through the market, a group of Torvian elders blocked his path. They were old, with silver eyes and long robes. You are not one of us, the leader said calmly. Why do you walk our halls as if you belong? Daniel didn't answer with anger. He simply said, because your king accepted me. And Kira chose me. That's enough. The elders frowned, but didn't argue. They stepped aside. Daniel walked on, but he could feel the pressure building. There were many who still didn't accept their union. That evening, Daniel returned to the royal quarters. Kira was speaking with her advisor, a young Torvian named Lauren. She looked worried. What's wrong? Daniel asked. Kira turned to him. There's talk in the council. Some say our marriage weakens the royal bloodline. Others say it gives humans too much influence. So they want to break us apart? Daniel asked. Some do, she said quietly, but my father won't allow it. Still, this peace is not stable. Daniel nodded. Then maybe it's time we show them something more. What do you mean? She asked. We've spoken about peace, Daniel said. But now we need to prove it. Not just by words, but by actions. Kira thought for a moment. Then she smiled. You're right. Need to do something big. The next day, they went to the king with a plan. They asked for permission to travel to a nearby system where a group of Torvian rebels had taken control. Of a mining colony, the rebels claimed the king had grown soft and were preparing for war. We want to go there, Daniel said. It's a message. Show them that peace is strength. The king looked troubled. It's dangerous. So is doing nothing, Kira replied, after a long silence. The king agreed. A week later, Daniel, Kira, and a small team boarded a Torvian diplomatic cruiser. They flew to the mining colony, deep in the shadow zone where Torvian rule was weakest. When they arrived, the colony was dark and cold. No welcome. Only silence. This feels wrong, Daniel whispered. Kira nodded. Stay close. They walked into the center square where the old mining equipment still stood. From the shadows, figures began to appear, Torvian rebels in dark armor. Their leader, a tall figure with harsh eyes, stepped forward. The king sends his daughter and her human pet, he said with disgust. Kira stood tall. It came with respect. We don't need peace, the rebel said. We need strength. The old ways. Daniel stepped forward. I was just a medic. I never wanted to be part of your world. But I saved Kira not because of power, not for reward, but because it was right. And now I stand here because I believe your people deserve more than endless war. The rebel leader laughed. You think your soft words will change us? Kira's voice was clear. No, but we are not afraid. It came with nothing but truth. For a long moment, the rebel said nothing. Then he raised his weapon. Then leave. With your lives while you still can.
Ow.
Daniel placed a hand on Kira's shoulder. We should go. But before they could move, a voice came from behind the rebels. Enough. It was a young rebel soldier. Stepped forward, removing his helmet. I heard the stories, he said. The princess fled. The human helped her. They returned not as rulers, but as partners. Maybe that's not weakness, the rebel leader growled. You speak against me? I speak for myself, the soldier replied. Others began to murmur. Some lowered their weapons. The leader looked around and saw his grip slipping. He turned and walked away. Silent Kira let out a breath that was close. Daniel nodded, but it worked. By the end of the day, the mining colony sent a message to Torvia. They would no longer fight. They would listen. When Daniel and Kira returned, they were welcomed not with cheers, but with respect. Even the elders, who had doubted them now, looked at Daniel with different eyes. The king met them at the landing bay. You faced danger without violence, he said. You showed them another way. They listened because we stood together. Kira replied. The king gave Daniel a nod. You may not be one of us by blood, but today you earned your place. Daniel smiled. Thank you, Your Majesty. As they walked back to their quarters, Kira took Daniel's hand. You were brave, she said. We both were, he replied. They looked out at the stars, knowing that their journey was far from over. But now, for the first time, they had more than hope. They had proof that peace between their worlds was possible. After returning from the rebel colony, Daniel and Kira became symbols of hope. Their visit had calmed a tense situation, and more voices in Torvian society began to support peaceful ties with humans. Daniel didn't expect fame. He had only wanted to protect Kira, but now he stood in the center of something much larger. Kira was called to speak in front of the High Council. Daniel stood quietly beside her as she walked into the grand hall, where Torvian leaders sat on high platforms. The walls glowed with deep green lights, and old banners hung from above. One of the elder leaders stood. You have done something no one thought possible. You brought peace to the mining colony without war. Kira spoke with calm confidence. We didn't force them. We gave them a reason to believe peace was still possible. We didn't go as rulers, but as equals. Another elder asked, And this human, your husband, what role did he play? Daniel stepped forward, speaking slowly but clearly. I didn't come here to lead. I only came to save someone's life. Everything after that. I stayed because I believed in her. Many in the room nodded, and some even gave quiet approval. It was a sign. Things were beginning to shift, but peace never comes easily. A few nights later, Kira and Daniel were walking through the royal gardens, a quiet place filled with soft lights and floating flowers. They often came here to think, away from politics and duty. Do you think it's real? Daniel asked. This peace? Kira looked at him. It's real to me, but not everyone wants it. Some still fear change, as if to prove her words. The next morning brought trouble. A hidden message was found inside one of the palace servers. It was short and cold. Remove the human, or the empire falls. It was a threat. And it wasn't the first Kira met with her father in the war chamber. Daniel stood beside her as the king read the message. There are still powerful voices who see you as a danger, Orvik said. They hide in shadows, but they are not few. They won't stop us, Kira said firmly. The king looked at Daniel. Are you willing to face this? Your life may be in danger. Daniel nodded. I already made my choice. I'm not leaving. Yes. The king nodded back. Then we must prepare. Security was tightened. Guards watched every gate. Even the palace. Corridors were checked. But the threat didn't come through armies. It came in silence. 2 nights later, Daniel's room was entered by a masked figure with a blade. The assassin moved fast and silent, but Daniel had seen war before. He rolled from his bed, grabbed a chair, and blocked the first strike. The alarm sounded, and within moments, guards rushed in. The attacker tried to flee, but was captured. Kira arrived minutes later, breathless and afraid. Are you hurt? She cried. Daniel shook his head, still breathing hard. It's just shaken. The king came soon after. He looked at the captured assassin and said, This is proof. Peace is not enough. We need justice. They learned the attacker belonged to a secret group called the Bloodline. They believed Torvia should stay pure and untouched by outsiders. They had been hiding in high places, waiting for a chance to strike. What do we do now? Kira asked. We show them we are not afraid, the king said. But we must be smart. The next step must be powerful and public. The idea came the next day, Unity Gathering. For the first time, humans and Torvians from many planets would meet under one roof. Ambassadors, soldiers, traders, and thinkers all in one place. It would be hosted on Torvia, with Daniel and Kira leading it. The location was chosen carefully. Large open hall near the city's heart, with clear skies above and strong walls around. Thousands were invited. Many accepted, some refused, and a few warned it would be dangerous. On the day of the event, Daniel looked at himself in the mirror. He wore both human and Torvian symbols on his jacket. Kira joined him, wearing a mix of armor and silk. "You ready?" she asked. "As ready as I can be," Daniel replied. They arrived at the hall together. Guards stood everywhere, and drones hovered above for safety. Guests filled the room. Daniel saw both familiar human faces and unfamiliar Torvian ones. There was tension, but also curiosity. Kira stepped forward and spoke first. "This gathering is not about forgetting the past. It's about choosing a better future." Daniel followed. "I was a medic. I treated wounds. Now I stand here because one patient changed my life. Peace is not soft. It is strong when built." With trust, there was quiet for a long moment. Then slowly, applause began. It grew louder as more joined in, but just as hope started to rise. An explosion rocked the far wall. Guards rushed to block the blast. Dust filled the air. Panic spread, but Daniel grabbed a microphone and shouted, "Stay calm, follow the guards, help each other." Kira stood at the center, helping lead the crowd to safety. Later they learned that another member of the Blood Line had planted a hidden device. No lives were lost, thanks to quick actions. But it was a warning. The enemies of peace were still watching. That night, Kira sat beside Daniel in silence. "They will keep coming," she said. "Then we'll keep standing," he replied. She leaned her head on his shoulder. Together, always.
Aside.
Torvian lights blinked across the dark sky. Inside, hope still burned bright and steady, even in the face of danger. After the explosion at the Unity Gathering, everything changed. The halls of Torvia grew quieter. People spoke in whispers. Some blamed the humans. Others blamed the old ways. But most were simply afraid. Daniel and Kira were not injured, but their hearts were heavy. What should have been a moment of peace had turned into another warning from those who hated change. "We can't let this stop us," Daniel said. He stood by the wide window of their chamber, watching Torvian patrol. Ships fly by. "If we show fear now, they win," Kira agreed, though her voice was tired. "We need something stronger than a speech this time. Something that proves this alliance is worth fighting for." King Orvik called them to a meeting. His face was calm, but Daniel could see the worry in his eyes. "The bloodline is growing," the king said. "They move in the shadows, but their message spreads quickly. Fear is their weapon. We need to act fast. What do you suggest?" Kira asked. The king placed a small hologram on the table, showed a planet named Draven 5, a place rich in crystals used for Torvian energy systems. The mining colonies there were shared by humans and Torvians. Now, it was under attack. "They've taken control," Orvik said. "They claim Draven 5 belongs only to pure Torvians." Daniel frowned. "So they're not just hiding now. They're trying to take planets. If we don't stop them," Kira said, "others will join." The king nodded. "I want you two to lead the mission. Not as soldiers, but as leaders. Show the people that this fight is not human against Torvian. It's peace against hate," Kira agreed at once. Daniel hesitated for a second, but then nodded too. "We'll go." A few days later, they arrived at Draven 5 in a joint ship. With them came a small force half human, half Torvian. Each soldier had trained to work side by side, not as enemies, but as partners. As they landed, the smoke was thick in the air. Fires burned near the old mining sites. The colony center had been turned into a base by the bloodline. Banners flew with their symbol, a twisted star with sharp edges. "We go in first?" Kira said. "Let them see us. No armor. No fear." Daniel looked at her. It's just like old times. They walked through the ruined streets, holding their hands high. A few bloodline rebels appeared, weapons raised. But when they saw who it was, they stopped. The presence of the royal daughter and the human husband shook them. "You dare walk here?" One rebel shouted. "We don't walk in anger," Kira replied. "We walk for peace." The rebel leader stepped forward. He was younger than most. Tall, dark skin with deep red eyes. His name was Renos. "You speak of peace but bring soldiers," Renos said. Daniel replied calmly. "We brought those who believe in both sides. You're not here to fight unless you give them a reason." Renos stared at them. "Your marriage has confused our people. Do you think joining with a human makes you strong?" Kira said, "Because he chose me, not for power, not for blood, but because he saw me as a person, not a weapon." Daniel stepped beside her. "We don't need to be the same to stand together." For a long moment, nothing moved. Then, without a word, Renos turned and walked back into the colony. "Was that good or bad?" Daniel whispered. "We'll find out soon," Kira replied. Later that night, a message came. Renos wanted to talk again, this time privately. In the old mining hall, the meeting was quiet. Reno sat across from them. "I lost my brother," he said suddenly. "Years ago, in a human-Torvian conflict. He died, believing all humans were cruel." Daniel nodded. "I've seen loss too. I was a medic during that same time. I held more dying hands than I can count." "So why do you still believe in peace?" Renos asked. "Because I had to choose," Daniel said. "Anger or healing. I chose healing." Kira leaned forward. "We can't change the past, but we can build something new." Renos was silent for a while. Then he stood. "I will speak to my people. Some may listen, others won't." "That's all we ask," Kira said. The next morning, half of the blood line fighters had laid down their weapons. Renos stood beside Kira and Daniel as the colony returned to peace. The remaining rebels were taken into custody, but no blood was spilled. News of their success spread quickly. For the first time, human and Torvian crowds cheered together in the capital. Schools began teaching about both cultures. Shared science programs were opened. Even some royal advisors who once doubted them now spoke in support. That night, back in Torvia, Daniel sat beside Kira in the quiet of the garden. "We've come so far," she said. "And we still have more to do," Daniel replied. "Yes," she smiled. "But for now, just this moment." They sat in silence, hand in hand. The stars above shining over a world slowly healing one step at a time.